Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cavell Cloud Conversations podcast. Once again, I'm Finbarr, Senior Analyst at Cavell, not joined by Patrick this week. Instead, I'm joined by Jamie Stanton, who is the MD, the Managing Director of EMEA at 8x8. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Finbarr. How are you?
I'm excellent. I just came back from the Cloud Communications Week conference in Berlin. A really great conference full of people. I know 8x8 was there as well. It's just really interesting. You see the industry booming at a conference like that, you know, halls and halls full of people and such a good vibe.
Yeah, no, agreed. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join myself, but some of my team were out there this week, and I got lots of pictures and videos, and it looked very buzzing, looked very energetic, which is great. It's great to see the industry really moving forward in the way that it's moving at the moment.
And anyone who's been at an event recently would have noticed 8x8 has recently gone through a rebrand. And I thought you'd like to take a moment to sort of talk about that and tell us, you know, what prompted that decision and what the rebrand has kind of changed at 8x8 and what it kind of represents for your momentum in the industry. Yeah,
sure. Look, so I'm sure plenty of the listeners would have, or viewers would have seen that, you know, out in the market at the moment, where we've had a brand transformation. We started on our brand transformation. So, look, what does it mean? We talked about being unboxed. If you're familiar with the old brand, with the 8x8 in the box, and now we're sort of breaking out the box. And what does that actually mean? And it's a bit more than just a brand refresh and a new color coding. This is more than that, both internally and externally. Internally, this is a sort of cultural transformation on who we are and where we're going, as well as showing the market as well as to exactly who we are. And this very deep focus on CX and what we're hearing from our customer base, our partner base, on the demands for customer satisfaction. I think, you know, the research is showing that a customer, a supplier of services to a customer has very few, just about 2 opportunities to make a mistake before that customer will up sticks and move somewhere else. So such small margins of error now. So the demand on suppliers such as us to really understand that business and help them not just meet their customer demand and expectations, but help them get beyond that to excel at it, to make them stand out in the market is becoming more and more prevalent. So this brand is really a representation of 8x8 transforming not just our label and the color codes, but our systems, our processes, our culture, our technology track. So this helps us to accelerate these business outcomes for our customers and really empower stronger relationships with our customers and partners.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the box before and now outside the box. And I think one of the things that we've talked about, especially with 8x8, is this idea that whatever platform you had before, whether it was UC, CX, that's not contained anymore. It's not a contained platform. When you deliver it now to customers, there is interaction, there is interoperability. You know, you have to be flexible in how you're doing it. So, I mean, how has that changed the delivery of these products to your customers? You know, how have customer demands been changing to match this rebrand, I guess?
It's a really good question. Look, so customers now, I mean, they're not, as we're moving forward, like I say, you know, these margins for error, and so many of our customer base now, every single employee at that customer is now responsible for the success of their customer. So it makes the communication layer within that organization that much more important. But customers are not bothered whether or not it's UCaaS or it's CCaaS or it's CPaaS. You know, these are old constructs, and that sort of gets into that kind of box mentality.
They're useful for analysts. Because we like to put companies in little boxes. But absolutely. Customers don't care anymore.
They don't care. Absolutely, they don't care. What they're looking for is solutions to problems. And beyond that, not just solutions to problems, but innovative solutions. They're fixing problems that they don't even know that they've got just yet. So what we're trying to create here is this. Look, we focus on our customers' individual issues and solving the problems they have today and future-proofing to solve the problems they'll face tomorrow, so they can bring innovative solutions to market and make their customer experience that much better. So it's irrelevant whether or not it's CPaaS. It's irrelevant whether or not it's UCaaS or CCaaS. And many of these solutions now are, intertwining elements of all of these solutions. So they're packaged up to be able to provide something significant that solves this problem, and the customer doesn't care whether or not it fits into one bucket or the other. All they're bothered about is the solution that it delivers. And because our organization has been able to, we own these technologies, and we've been able to embed them within this sort of single platform, it allows us to make that integration much better. So we're seeing this now, with housing and the solutions we're providing to housing or to healthcare or to retail, where we're intertwining elements of these services to create a solution that improves the overall customer experience in certain use cases.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as well, it's interesting when we think about these terms and these customer use cases, that in many ways the nature of the customers that we serve is changing as well, because there's been a large growth in the mid-market and bringing these tools down to companies that never had them previously. And that's why this terminology is also becoming outdated, because when you go into a mid-market company, you say, hey, do you want to buy a contact center? Their first response would be, no, why? What? I'm not going to buy a contact center. What do you mean? And then you start explaining what it's actually going to do for them, and suddenly you have a discussion,
Yeah, that is so true. The amount of discussions I've had with prospective customers where we've talked about contact center, and we don't have a contact center, because in their mind they view the contact center in the very traditional sense. There's people lined up on desks with headsets and lots of screens, which is still relevant in many organizations, but a lot of them don't have that. But then when you start digging in and scratching, and you realize, well, actually, yes, you do have, quote unquote customer, because that customer can be, a paying customer, can be a patient, can be whomever. Mm-hmm. But you have this quote unquote customer where you do have a body of customer facing employees, which do make up a contact center, but perhaps in a more informal setting. And that's where, like I talk about these solutions, where we have 8x8 Engage, which is a solution which embeds many of the functionality that you get in a more formal contact center setting, which allows more disparate, spread out, informal, if you want to say informal contact center employees to take advantage of this technology, but in a more disparate manner. Perhaps they're all field-based and they need this on their mobiles. So that's where Engage comes in. So again, removing these labels allows us to bridge this gap and find solutions which are actually meaningful to what the customer wants.
And I think that's important to focus on, because like when a lot of people think about this, because we're at this point of innovation in the contact center space, and a lot of people think that when we talk about that innovation, we're talking about bots, we're talking about Gen AI, we're talking about all of that ChatGPT stuff. What they don't realize is that there's also, just fueled by all the data efficiency, cloud efficiency, there's a broader change happening in what an agent is, and also like what we can do with the agents and the people that are currently working in the contact center as well. So, I know you like to tell me before, it's not just about bots, but do you want to explain kind of what else is happening really?
Yeah, look, and that's true. Look, AI. It's the forefront of everybody's lips. And we were speaking before that we're seeing this as kind of like the Netscape moment, for those who can remember 1994 when Netscape introduced the first kind of usable version of a browser. So it made the internet far more accessible to people other than sort of more traditional techies. And it was like, it was the light bulb moment that went off. And then from that moment, you saw, we marched up towards the .com bubble burst in 2000 and thereafter. But, that's the kind of moment where, perhaps technology historians will look at and say, look, that was the piece that got everything accelerated. And if you look at, ChatGPT, when it made the launch, roughly about 18 months ago, that was kind of the Netscape moment for AI. And as you can see, that the march from then has been, incredible. And, and every organization is looking at us no different, not only in how we use it internally, but how we can actually provide this to a customer base, because lots of questions are coming up. There's a plethora now of bots and agents and co-pilots, and, how do we embed that? Will it work? And there's still a feeling, of the bad chatbot, the first versions of these that were unable, there was an interesting article that came out around 6 months ago, I think it was in the Financial Times, about chatbot hell, where people get stuck in this cycle. So there are still scars that are circulating around.
Still a lot of deployment as well, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty out there that they can't, that they can't answer yet. Everybody's looking at this and this transformation and trying to find ways. Well, we're hearing this. We want to embed it. We can see the efficiencies this is hopefully going to give us. But how do you make sense of the market? And what we mean is it's not just about the bots. There's lots of bots out there. There's lots and lots of bots. You can, some are industry specific, some are more generic. You've got agents, co-pilots. Most software vendors now are offering a form of AI within their packaging. I guess from 8x8's perspective, the real skill and really being able to move this in a way that makes AI not just essential for improving your internal processes, but improving customer experience is really around the data itself. Mm-hmm. And that is where, from an 8x8 perspective, we're in this very privileged position where we could be providing communication flows across all sides of the organization and being able to pull that data, construct it, package it, and present it to a customer in a way that they can train their LLMs appropriately, quickly, efficiently, and get the insights that really make a difference. That's, I think, going to be the next stage of this evolution and what's going to make a difference.
I think that's the part that I find really interesting, because again, it's not necessarily about what the customer sees, because the bots will get better, right? They have to. Yeah. There's a huge pressure on them to get better. But what people don't realize is the powerful tools that this new AI revolution, LLMs, bring to data processing. And a lot of the time, these things have been done for years, but they were a complicated data mining review process that took months, and you brought in an external specialist to go through all of your logs and identify why certain agents were underperforming and all this kind of stuff. Now we're talking about maybe not real time, but much faster, much more efficient, identifying those overlaps, those critical moments. LLMs are much better at understanding customer sentiment. All of these things are coming together on the back end to provide this new lens at a scale that people didn't conceive before, and also, to be fair, at a cost as well that is much more accessible to the mid-market, to a much wider customer base, which makes this much more interesting as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And the trick is, and this is where, if we want to use language such as contact center, this is where you're seeing that natural acceleration, because that's an obvious place to start. How can we upskill our agents? How can we give them data on hand that helps to improve that interaction with that customer? How can we relieve some of the more mundane and easily solvable concerns that we can push through an AI tool that allows to take that off their hands and allow the agent to be able to deal with the more sophisticated issues, but with all these support tools around them? And that's kind of the start. The key is, well, how do we then move that to other positions within the organization, which still may have an interplay with that customer? How can we get all that together? So sales teams, customer success teams, billing teams are getting that same level of support and gain from AI. And how do you integrate and lock that together? So from a integrated experience with that customer, it's all coming together. That's the next step. Contact center piece is a good start, but it's the next step. And it's really how you get there is going to be, right, okay, you're pulling this data across various elements of the organization, but constructing it in a way that you can train the LLMs efficiently to be able to provide that. So that's going to be an interesting next step. But
I think what excites a lot of people is they don't know exactly what they're going to discover once they start doing that process, because there's loads of interactions with this data that they haven't looked at before, revelations for their business. It's fascinating. I mean, to me as an analyst, it's fascinating. I think one of the things I wanted to talk about for a little bit, just as kind of like our final talking point, because obviously 8x8 is a heavily partner embedded organization. You rely on your partners, you work very closely with your partners, and very interesting companies that I have had the privilege to meet. But they are having to take all of this technology to the market, and it's proving an interesting thing for them to do, because customer demands for, we'll say, a specific solution is very varied across their customer base. So, I mean, how are your partners adapting to this new technology? What are they doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're looking to vendors for support. I mean, you're seeing now a push towards, like we say, CX. You're seeing customer expectation now in CX. which are putting pressure on a lot of our partners who resell our product, provide multiple services, but they could be providing thorough services, security, communications, connectivity, general support, a whole vast array of services across to that particular customer. And then they're getting very specific and technical questions around how they can improve, how they can move this forward. So, it's unfair to expect, our partner base to be, absolute experts across every single facet of these services that they provide and knit together. So that's where vendors such as 8x8 can step
especially because last year they didn't have to be as well. Exactly. 2 years ago.
Yeah. And so how do and they're looking to still provide value, and they want to be a value-added reseller. So that's where we can step in and help these partners on their CX journey. And that's a really important step. And we're working very closely with our professional services teams and other support teams so we can provide that level of support to our partners whilst they're moving through that journey, and be that upskilling their team, be that being parachuted in to help them on certain deals, or certain deployments or certain issues that they need support on. It's really providing that level of flexibility, because different partners are at different stages as well of this journey. So it's knowing, providing that flexibility and knowing when to step in and offer that service, and then knowing when to come in and ask for it as well, which, our partners are never sort of scared of coming forward and asking for when they need stuff, but they're still coming to terms with some of the stuff that the customers are asking them. So yeah, this is going to be a big step forward as we, as we bring our reseller community on that journey.
And I think that's interesting, because that's
incredibly exciting.
I think that's one of those sort of like bits behind the wheel, because we talked earlier in the podcast about consumers getting frustrated about why these bots aren't already on the front lines talking to them, when the reality is that there's actually a whole ecosystem that has to adapt to this change before they can start to roll them out. And a lot of vendors, like yourself, are looking at the channel and saying, wait a second, my partners don't have AI skills yet. They're not ready. And I think the thing that will differentiate the vendors that succeed in this transition to this more AI-focused, data-focused field is the level of support they offer their partner base, and how integrated they are with their partners, how closely they can work together. Because if your partner's trying to close a deal, they call you up and you don't have anyone answering the phone to help them, that deal's gone. Because the partner knows they can't provide it, and they're not going to let a customer have a bad experience with a new product.
Yeah, 100%, Finbarr. That's so true. I think that the three things as we're moving forward in this sort of relatively new landscape is it's agility, it's support, and it's flexibility. Those three things are going to set those vendors apart when it comes to the resale community. Other aspects as well, such as automation and and skills, and technology to help support them. But as talking specifically around this journey to upskill in CX and AI, it's those three elements. You need the flexibility, the traditional structures around fixed licensing cost and the traditional more subscription-based licensing needs to evolve. You've got to be able to provide agility, because customers are dipping their toe and they've got to figure out how this embeds in the efficiencies that they're making. And you've got to be able to provide the resellers that ability to be able to offer that flexibility to their customers. But you've got to be there. That support is absolutely key. And I agree with you. That's what's going to set vendors apart. Yeah. When they need that help, do you have the resource available? Do you have the structures available? Do you have the process available to step in and provide that help when they need it?
Exactly. And I mean, as you say, there's a whole scope of other things that need to be solved in terms of pricing, how this is all built, because customers aren't going to buy into a system where they're not sure what their bill's going to be next month. The service providers and the channel partners have to step in and kind of clarify this whole message for them. It's not just, well, buy 100 credits and if you use it, we'll charge you £20 per credit after that. It has to be a whole balanced ecosystem to reassure customers that this journey is going to be painless and managed well.
Absolutely. And I think a common mistake that a lot of vendors make is they forget that the customer to the vendor is the reseller. They are the customer. So sometimes that can get lost a little bit in translation as to what they think is best and what is right. So as you're working through this journey, you've got to be thinking what is right for the reseller, because they're ultimately the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll thank you. This is some really great insights, and I really think it's good to sort of dive into, what one of the leading companies in the space like 8x8 is thinking about all of these latest trends. So I'll thank you for joining me today. Do you have any sort of final thoughts on any of this that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Oh, that's pretty conclusive. I think we've touched on quite a few subjects.
Job done.
It's an exciting space, and AI is here and it's here to stay. And I think if companies or resellers, partners, vendors are not grasping this, then I think they're missing a trick and they're going to be left behind. Yeah, as we touched on in the podcast, it's around making it meaningful and making it, rather than it just being a buzzword or quackery, it's making it meaningful for customers, and that's where the focus needs to be. Like I say, at this stage, I think a lot of it's around the insights we can gain from the data that we can provide to these tools, and really what you want the AI pointer to help you solve. But that's going to be the key. And as we come through this journey together, it's really exciting. It's daunting. It's scary. Everybody's got lots and lots of questions, and we really are still at the beginning part of this journey. It's only going to get better, and we can see some of the amazing stuff that AI can do, and it's only going to get better. We're still at the early stages of this journey, but it's exciting. So the work that we're doing here is making sure that we are focused. We're focusing in the right place. We're providing the support to our customers and our resellers. And we're going along this transformation that we're making to become this really true CX organization, which is really cool.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And I mean, as you've mentioned, it is a really exciting time in the cloud and the CX space. And of course, if you want regular CX updates, you can, of course, like and subscribe to this podcast, and make sure you're getting regular updates from Cavell, myself and Patrick on what is happening in the cloud industry. Thanks, Jamie. I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Thank you, Finbarr. Bye-bye.